If you've read every self-help book, identified every red flag, and been through years of therapy, but still choose people who hurt you, this video's for you. I'm going to show you why your intelligence isn't the problem. You don't have a character flaw. You have a nervous system glitch that's getting in the way of your logic when you're picking a partner. As a nurse and survivor, I'm giving you the physiological explanation behind this. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why being smart hasn't protected you and how you can start changing that. First, I have to confess something that most experts would be embarrassed to admit. When I got married to my ex-husband, I knew with quite a bit of certainty on my wedding day, in the morning of that day, that my marriage was likely not going to last. But I ended up walking down the aisle anyway. I remember kind of feeling like a fraud and asking myself, how could I, as a medical professional with years of experience, make such bad decisions in my life? And it turns out that the brain that reads psychology books and self-help books is not the same brain that chooses partners. The reason for this disconnect is that you have different parts of your brain that speak different languages. And learning about these different languages is the first step to getting unstuck. Step one is escaping the intelligence trap. Knowledge lives in the prefrontal cortex part of the brain, in the front of our brain, and that's for logic. And our emotional and safety portion of the brain is in the center, and that's the limbic system. And that's the system that we use to pick partners. Once you realize that you have these two different systems, you want to stop asking the question of, why am I making such bad choices? And start asking questions like, what is my nervous system trying to protect me from? And you're not looking for a logical answer. You're looking for the fear answer. You want to answer the question, what am I afraid of? And common answers to this might be fear of abandonment, fear of being seen, fear of failure, or fear of impending threat. If you grew up in an emotionally abusive household, you are likely not used to the feeling of safety. You are likely used to the feeling of chaos. And that wires your brain to basically look for that as a feeling of safety because that's what you're used to. So the language that your body is speaking is choosing the abuser because that is what feels familiar and comfortable to you. If any of this information is hitting home with you and resonating with you, it'd be so helpful if you could click that thumbs up button. That really helps to make sure that more people get to see this video. Thank you. And I wanted to take a minute to let you know that I've created a mental health resource guide that contains information about all the things I've done to heal myself over the past several years. And I want to share that information with you. There's a link in the description below. If you click it, I will send that to you for free. You might also ask yourself why the highs in a more abusive relationship are so intense and so alluring versus how you might feel in a healthy relationship. And it's really related to something that looks very much like addiction. Step number 2 is to decode the cortisol and dopamine loop. When you're in a relationship with an abusive or an unpredictable person, this diagram kind of explains what's going on. So you have the tension in the relationship that's often there, and that creates cortisol, and that's your stress hormone. And then you maybe have, so you have this kind of ongoing tension, and then maybe an explosive incident will happen, a fight or a big disagreement or something like that. And your cortisol goes up even higher and spikes more. And then after that period, there might be a honeymoon period where your abuser feels remorseful and he's sad and very loving to you and feels really bad about what happened. And then because you have this period of love that was right after this period of intensity and cortisol, you create this huge spike of dopamine. And that dopamine is like the feel-good hormone that makes you feel really good and relaxed and happy, almost like a high sort of feeling. And you get that surge, and that's what makes you feel deeply, feel like you're deeply in love and deeply attracted to this person. This cycle is what mimics addiction. And also when you're with an unpredictable person, the cycle is somewhat unpredictable. Their behavior is somewhat unpredictable. And that intermittent quality of their behavior and the unpredictability of it is actually more reinforcing of this cycle. Here's an action you can take to start kind of breaking down this cycle. If you notice that you have butterflies in a situation like this, just pause and look at it and think to yourself, does this look like anxiety? Does this feel like anxiety? If it does, treat the butterflies as a red flag instead of an invitation. Start to question it. Start to be curious about it. And don't automatically think that it's butterflies and that it's a good thing. Why do so many self-aware and smart women immediately jump to defending and analyzing their abusive behavior? It's time to talk about the final trap, and that's intellectual bypassing. Intellectual bypassing is a defense mechanism where individuals use logic, analysis, and intellectualization to avoid experiencing uncomfortable emotions, trauma, or deep-seated feelings. It prioritizes thinking over feeling, using abstract reasoning to create a safe distance from painful emotional experiences. If you're using the logic center of your brain to analyze and explain someone's behavior, you're preventing yourself from having feelings about it. Here's something you can try. The next time you feel triggered, set aside 20 minutes to do no analysis. So that means no thinking about it, no analyzing, no trying to justify, no trying to explain it. Try to do a mindful activity for about 20 minutes. So that could be coloring, meditation, yoga, grounding techniques, breathing techniques, anything like that to keep yourself out of thinking for about 20 minutes. And once that 20 minutes has passed and you feel regulated and your body feels relaxed and calm, then you can allow yourself to do some thinking. And getting in touch with your feelings, especially the feelings in your body right at this time, is going to be so valuable to you in the future because it's going to help you identify where you're holding your stress and where you're holding your fear in your body. It's also giving you a chance to not ignore your feelings, to not ignore the trauma that you're experiencing, and to honor that. If you decide to try any of the action items that I gave you today, please leave me a message and let me know how it goes. So today we just kind of scratched the surface on some things that you can do to help get out of your logic brain and more into your emotional brain and your feeling brain. I also recently did a video about how to heal your nervous system, and I'm going to link that here so you can go check that out next. Thanks.